The early 1800s were pivotal years for Arkansas's birth as a prime agricultural state. During that time, planters from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia came here for the rich river soil of the Delta to grow the king of all crops, cotton. The stately homes that these planters built with their unique architectural style exemplified this plantation era steeped in Southern history with its triumphs and tragedies.
By the 1840s, plantation agriculture started to make its way into the southern eastern parts of the state. And by 1850, the 1850s were a period of general prosperity in Arkansas. And while the prosperity was general, it wasn't uniform. It was concentrated in the plantation areas of the South and Southeast. And by the time of the Civil War, you're starting to see the growth of real plantation agriculture and the creation of great wealth in certain parts of the state, those plantation parts of the country. And that exists up until the time of the Civil War. Most people don't realize that in the 1850s, Arkansas was a part of the fastest growing region in the nation economically. And this prosperity was something that was pretty much unknown in our history. And of course, the war puts an end to all that. But you would find this plantation agriculture based largely on cotton in the Delta, but also up the Arkansas River Valley, up in the lowlands along the Arkansas River Valley. While the Civil War transforms this. As a general rule, most of the people that had land managed to keep that land. Of course, slavery's over. New arrangements have to be made. And then initially a variety of forms of arrangements existed. The system that comes to prevail is sharecropping, where a freedman or freedwoman without land would work for a landowner and would pay the landowner a portion of the crop. Theoretically, this was going to be a temporary stage, which would transform eventually into renting and then land ownership. In point of fact, that didn't happen because the South in Arkansas tied its economic fortune after the war largely to cotton, a crop that languished for about the next 100 years.
The Lakeport Plantation in southeast Arkansas has remained in continuous cotton production since the 1830s.
When the Johnsons first came here in the 1830s, of course, they brought slaves with them to clear land, to start growing cotton. So when Joel came here in 1831, there were 23 slaves. And by 1860, when the Courages had the plantation, there were 155 slaves here in the plantation. And most of those were of course, field hands. You know, were working growing cotton and clearing land. A few of those were working in the house. We know that there were 7 or 8 house servants in the house in 1860. But after the war, most of the slaves were gone. They left when freedom came, but they may have stayed in the area. And some of them stayed on at the house working. Some of them may have stayed on as sharecroppers and tenant farmers through contracts with the landowner. By the 1950s and certainly by the 1960s, mechanization had occurred and most of those sharecroppers were displaced and they moved to places like Chicago and Detroit. A lot of times they were happy to leave. You know, they weren't necessarily happy to be sharecroppers down here.
Vacant since 1972, the Lakeport Plantation House has managed to escape being remodeled, redecorated, or modernized, and remains for the most part unchanged since the day it was built. Therefore, this Greek Revival-style architecture home provides an excellent resource for learning about early craftsmanship and historic building techniques. Greek Revival, of course, was very popular in the antebellum era.
But by 1859, when our house is built, it's starting to fall out of favor, but the Johnsons still chose to go with the Greek revival. Some of the nearby family homes were Italianate and were also built in the same time period. But our house had changed very little since it was built in 1859, and so it was a very good candidate for high-level restoration.
Restoration on Lakeport was completed in 2007 as an official project of the Save America's Treasures program, and it's now one of Arkansas's premier historic structures, operated by Arkansas State University as a museum, with the house itself as a primary artifact. It was decided that rather than create another pretty house, the restoration and interpretation would focus on the lifestyles and relationships between the people who lived and worked at Lakeport and the not-so-grandeur of the Old South that remains.
We have a remnant of one slave quarters on the back of the house. It's been moved and altered a little bit for parked trucks under by the 1960s. But most of the slave quarters were south of here by Joel's house. We know in 1860 there were 10 slave quarters on the plantation according to the slave schedule. So 10 slave quarters for 155 slaves, so that's a lot of people packed in very small buildings. But there are slave cemeteries that are nearby. Some of them are probably not identified, but there is one cemetery north of us, not too far, that we think dates to slavery.
And there's also some grave sites here on the property.
Yeah, and there's another small cemetery in the back of the house that was for some of the Johnson children who died right after the war. There are 2 children out there from the late 1860s and 2 grandchildren from the 1880s. The 3 children that they had that died before the war are actually buried in Kentucky. And Mom and Dad, Lycurgus and Lydia Johnson, are also buried in Kentucky too.
Of course, with Lakeport being situated not too far from the Mississippi River, you just never know when that famous Southern author and storyteller Mark Twain might decide to make an appearance.
And you gentlemen are welcome too. Thank you very much. Well, I'm so pleased to be here at Lakeport Plantation. Now, at one time, you could have stood up on the veranda here at this plantation or almost any plantation along the Mississippi River and seen the Mississippi River. You can't do that nowadays. There were times where you could stand up there and you'd see those steamboats coming down the river, plying up and down. Kids would be running up and down all the landings all over the place. Especially like up in Rosedale at the Colonial Hotel. You could stand out there at Rosedale at the Colonial Hotel, look right out the river, almost touch the steamboats right there at the landing. Up there at Big Island. Some of you may know Big Island up there, north of here, I think. You could stand out there on the landings too and check out the steamboats. You just never know what was going to be coming down the river, that's for sure.
As Twain always said, reports of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. Built in the English Louisiana raised cottage style and situated on 40 acres in Altimer, northeast of Pine Bluff, the Elms Plantation is all about hospitality in the aura and tradition of the Old South.
Truly, it's an experience the minute you enter the gates. I mean, you certainly don't expect it at the end of the gravel road, and middle of the crops, and then all of a sudden you see this huge Arkansas flag and private gates. You think, wow, I wonder what's back there. But it's pretty cool as soon as you come through the gates. I feel it every single time.
Kimberly Olivia Vassar Freeman is the current lady of the house. During the mid-1800s, it was Abigail Jones.
Abigail Jones, yes, she, her eyes follow you, by the way. So my children have always said, and they really do, but she built the home in 1866, she and her husband, Dr. Samuel Jones, and she and her daughter are buried here on the property. Don't quite know exactly where, but I know the general vicinity. And she's all that. She stays right there, and that's where she's been for many years.
The Elms Plantation was inherited by the Freemans from the grandmother of Kim's husband.
My husband and I did. His grandmother died in '97, and we inherited it. We had already lived here with her for a number of years. I think since '91, since Mr. Barnett died.
And looking at some of the rooms here, tell us what you've done so far. And I mean, this is magnificent.
Well, obviously, I'm a collector, but I have a hard time getting rid of anything, especially if I inherited it. But there's a lot of furnishings that were here with the Barnetts, and the Barnetts lived here for 46 years. And I have held on to those things and left them where Miss Barnett had it, basically. But it's just part of the Elms. And some of the things were purchased from the estate of Mr. Altimer, whom lived here 8 years, died here in the home. And he was quite a young man, actually. Not as I would consider old.
The Elms Plantation is actually a bed and breakfast, and you can stay either in the 20-room mansion big house or the nearby cottages.
Which go along with my duck hunting business and my carp fishing business that I have people from England, country England, not the little England up the road 30 miles, but they come here to carp fish. And they enjoy staying here in the cabins, which are now called lodges 1 and 2. But I have many people inquiring to stay here, and which I love because I love to entertain. And they can have a full Southern breakfast, which is complimentary from staying here overnight, or I can fix them a grand 5-course dinner in the Elms dining room.
And you do the cooking.
I do very much. Now, I will venture out and have a little help, but I myself, I'm capable of doing all that. If I had the time to do it, I prefer to do it myself.
And the lake and the whole, that scene is just a whole separate experience for people. You mentioned the nature trail and going out on the canoe or a boat, or
they can, or fish by the bank, because it's just so pleasant to be on that lake. It is 16 acres. It's a stock lake, but the carp have been there for many, many years. You look out there, you think you have a little shark, out in by the way their fins do, but they're quite large. And of course, it's catch and release. And the carp fishermen, they catch the carp, they like pet him or something, and then they'll take a picture, and then they'll gently put him back. So it's really interesting. But the nature trail is really cool, though. It's always shaded in the heat of August, you walk around it and it is cool. It's just really nice.
So whether you come for just a tour, an overnight stay, or for the carp and catfish in the lake, Ms. Kim's Southern hospitality and Southern charm will stay with you long after you drive back out the front gate. In the lowlands marking the beginning of the Arkansas Delta, the small agricultural community of Scott, just southeast of Little Rock, formed the nucleus for the cotton plantation culture that developed and flourished here in the early 1800s. Lured by the fertile soil, as in other parts of the Delta, slave-owning planters migrated to this area in the early territorial years following the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Huge plantations were established by several prominent families with plantation names like Cottonwood, Land's End, and Marl's Gate. The retreat into the past at Marl's Gate starts way before you even come close to this stately plantation home. The time warp begins some 2 miles back on Bearskin Lake Road, where the original boundary of the plantation is entered at the edge of Bearskin Lake, appropriately named by early settlers due to the large number of bears which provided not only food but clothing as well for the early planters and their slaves. And so, as one continues down this road, the farther you're taken into the past, as Bearskin Lake opens up beside you with its ancient cypress trees and cypress knees. In other words, that mystique and charm of the South begins even before you lay eyes on Marl's Gate itself. Once you do lay eyes on this Greek Revival mansion, you can see why it's been famed as one of the most resplendent plantation homes built along the Arkansas Delta, and is called a Mansion of Arkansas. A magnificent entry hall characteristic of antebellum interior design focuses on a spectacular 10-foot wide staircase upon which any Southern belle scarlet would love to make her elegant and gracious descent to greet guests. More than 10,000 square feet encompass 32 elegant rooms that would take at least a separate half hour to talk about. Another reason this home is called a Mansion of Arkansas is that it contains one of the South's most outstanding collections of family heirlooms and antique furnishings, reflecting the lavish lifestyle of the Southern plantation era of the 1800s. To the right of the entry hall is the drawing room, where the lady of the house might take a moment or two to gaze out onto the plantation. Next to the drawing room is the dining room with a mahogany banquet table matching 1820 Empire walnut chairs, and centered above the table, an 1870 crystal chandelier. Following an old Southern custom, the master bedroom at Marlsgate is located on the first floor to the left of the entry hall behind the music room. A walnut four-poster canopied bed in this room is typical of the massive beds used in plantation homes prior to the Civil War. Upstairs, there are 4 bedrooms, one of which is called the Confederate bedroom. Various Civil War memorabilia are displayed here, including, last but not least, a bed owned by Jefferson Davis, President of the Southern Confederacy. Surrounding Marlsgate are 4 distinct garden areas. An accomplished horticulturist, owner David Garner, in fact, has one of the finest private gardens in the state. Not being one to like being on camera, owner David Garner extends a cordial invitation to all guests who travel to the Arkansas Delta to experience a glimpse of plantation culture of the 19th century, illuminating the rich historical and cultural heritage of the American South, the habits and traditions of its people, the triumphs and tragedies of its past, preserved to come alive for future generations, not only here at Marlsgate, but in all plantation homes of Arkansas.